To make a presentation. First, we are in the city of Johnstown, and believe me, no matter whether we live in Westmont, Cambria County, Evansburg, anywhere, the Gleasons are Johnstown city people. So it behooves us first to go with the first municipality, double underline, and our great mayor, Dawn Zuka. Dawn.
I don't usually read these, but this isn't that long, and I had some help. It's well done. I think you'll enjoy this. This is a proclamation. Whereas on November 23rd, 2005, Andrew J. Gleason, attorney at law and longtime citizen of the city of Johnstown, will be honored by his friends and relatives on the occasion of his 100th birthday. And whereas in his youth, while a senior at Johnstown High School in 1923, his athletic prowess afforded him a coveted position on the Johnstown High School basketball team that went to the state semifinals. And whereas attorney Andrew J. Gleason, upon completion of his education and as a result of his life's work and experience interpreting the law, assisting the disadvantaged, devoting himself unselfishly to the duties of his office, overseeing appropriate documentation in the preservation of life and property for the citizens of this community. And whereas in recognition for his many professional contributions within the city, such as assistance in acquiring funding and the establishment of affordable housing for the elderly at the Vine Street Towers and the Joe Johns Towers, and through his guidance and tutelage, a number of sporting, cultural, and civic organizations benefited through his chosen career as he worked for many as president or legal counsel for the betterment of the community, devoting many hours preparing documents and assisting the membership, thus improving the civic and economic strength of our region. And whereas he justly earned the respect, admiration, and high regard, not only of his beloved wife, Olga Davis Gleason, which union lasted 57 years, his family of 3 children, Robert, Ann, and Andrew, and 9 grandchildren, but all of with whom he has come into contact over these past years. And now, therefore, on behalf of our City Council and all citizens, I do hereby proclaim, by virtue of the authority vested in me, that this shall be declared Andrew J. Gleason Day. And the citizens shall extend to him this expression of our esteem and our very best wishes for his happiness on his birthday and the years to come. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. The next presentation will be handled by the administrative assistant to Representative Martha, who was Brad Clemenson, who was escorted by a proper Republican Marine Honor Guard, Mike Walker. But first I'll call Brad up to make a presentation.
Thank you, Gunnar. I'll be very brief. Jack Martha has known Andy for a long, long time and wished he could have been here today personally. But what Jack did was he had a flag flown over the United States Capitol in honor of Andy. And he also wrote a little note, Dear Andy, congratulations on the momentous occasion of your 100th birthday. I am honored to be your friend. I admire you for the many contributions you have made to our community over the years. And I feel sure that your next 100 years will be even better. Congratulations again, Jack.
Speakers, I'd like to make a few introductions. We appreciate everyone that came. Everyone is important, and if I single you out, it's because I think I can get some benefit from it. First, I'd like to introduce our county commissioners, Bill Harrods and Myla George, and our former county commissioner, Kathy Holzman. Also, fortunately, checking up from it is our good friend, the County Controller, Ed Cerny Jr. We have a lot of fine businessmen here today, and it's a pleasure for them to be here. Both of them gave counsel, and we were the only ones that could always get them speaking together in harmony. It's a great privilege to introduce Mark Pascarella and George Zamias. And from the days of past, a dear friend, Johnny Gellermino. John. I'd like to also introduce the guys that were with us all those years. A.J. started the law firm in 1950. There's many people that have been with us, and God forbid if I forget a few of them. Some aren't with us anymore. Norm Krumenacher Sr. and Jerry Gibson that started. Ernie Walker, with whom my father shared an office. We have a lot of good people that have been with us for the years, and I want to have them stand up, and I'm going to call their names because they're not only friends, they were great friends of my father, and they were the people that banded together to form what I hope is the best law firm in town. Calaboo notwithstanding. Mark McQuillan, Myron Markowitz, my brother Andy, Maureen McQuillan, Bill Shahady, Sammy D. They were the guys. Stand up, take a bow. We also had the best staff. And these guys might think they ran the outfit, but they didn't. To the ladies, notice how modern I'm getting. I'm not sexist anymore. I want them to stand up and give you a wave. We picked them for their pulchritude, but they had brains too, and believe me, they operate in a fine manner. The ladies of our firm, stand up please. I also want to introduce, and he was here, I don't know whether he's still here, Tony's still here, Ed Wojciechowski. He said he's still here. He was here and visited with us. We number him as a friend and appreciate him. Coming all the way from the eastern part of the state is a dear friend of my father's and myself. His uncle, Ted Rubino, was a lifelong friend of my father. It means a lot for us to have him here today. He's one of the best lawyers in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. From Westchester, Attorney Jim McLemore. Jim, take it back. Now, there's a lot of relatives here. And the young guys, you got to understand that the older generation never surrenders the podium. The best you're going to do until you can bump up to maybe 70 or 80 is a general introduction. So I'll have Pete Gleason be the cheerleader, but I want all the grandchildren, cousins, nephews, whatever, stand up and face your future. Look at it. And the older ones are Jim, Kit, and Robbie over there. You see them, so they give them a hand too. One other guy I'd like to call up before I call some members of the families. You know, we were taught in our family, and my dad was an engineer before he saw the light and fulfilled a lifetime ambition to be a lawyer. We don't value being lawyers lightly. It's the most important thing. It's more important than being a Republican or a Democrat, because lawyers are lawyers. And whether the public likes it or not, we prefer their company. One thing I'd like to do, though, and a man that exemplifies the best in our profession, who's dealt many times with my dad, who is a dear friend, and speaking on behalf of all the lawyers and the judges, and I see my friend Judge Joe Leahy over there to the side. You will have to be superseded by the President Judge, just retained, so he's in good shape. President Judge Jerry Long. Jerry.
Thanks, Bob. As the Gleasons know, but not too many people know, I'm half Irish, so I fit in there pretty well. When I think of Andy Gleason, the first thing I think about is intelligence and integrity. And I think that he's an outstanding lawyer, and he had the ability to fight like hell politically. And yet at the end, and I've met with Andy many, many times, he's like my father in a lot of ways. He told me one thing that I'll never forget. Democrats and Republicans can fight like hell, but when we're elected, we got to do well for the people that put us in there, whether we're R's or D's or whatever it is. And Andy, obviously, and the Gleason party, I'm a Democrat, they're Republicans, and in the 6 elections that I've run in this county, sometimes they've been with me, sometimes they've been against me. But it's always been a matter of honor, and I respect that more than anything. They have the integrity. If they can't be for you, they tell you, I can't do it. If they tell you they're going to be with you, they're not just giving you street talk, they're going to be with you. And more importantly than anything, you know, we make fun of attorneys and politicians, but this is one family. First of all, they are a family, and that's important to them. But throughout the years, they've shown that it's honorable to be an attorney and to be a politician. So Andy, thank you very, very much for the guidance and help you've given me through the years. And I know the whole bench feels that way, and all the attorneys should follow your example. Thank you.
What we're going to do today is have a few remarks, hopefully brief, in around about 5 minutes at the most, because I got the egg timer here. And I'm going to call on several people. First of all, my junior partner, prominent divorce lawyer, Andrew Davis Gleason. Andy.
Before I regale everybody with my very few comments, I would like to thank my nephew and partner, Bill Barbin's wife and secretary, Karen, for the very good job she did in putting this together. Thank you, Karen. A lot of the people here know stories about my dad as a politician, and a lot of people here know stories about my dad as a lawyer. But I would wager that very few of you know stories about my dad as a father. Now, I had experiences as a young boy growing up that had an impact on me. My dad, as I saw him, was a very caring and devoted. He was observant, and he had a very real sense that his children and his grandchildren had great potential. I remember when I was very young that my brother and my sister told me that I was adopted. Well, that's not really true. Actually, Bob said I was adopted, Ann said I was a foundling. So I went to my dad and I said, "Dad, am I adopted?" He said, "I'm reading the paper, ask your mother." So I went to my mother and I said, "Mom, am I adopted?" And she took my tear-stained little face and she looked me straight in the eye. And she said, "Look at me, of course you're a Gleason. You're exactly like your father and your brother. You may be wrong, but you're never in doubt." My dad was a very observant man. Just up to a very few years ago, he was at the office almost every day. And I remember once, he was going for coffee, and I was going to the front of the office to meet a client. And we passed, and I said, "Hi, Dad, how's it going?" And he looked at me and said, "Get a haircut, you look like a damn hippie." I was 60 years old when that happened. I had a little problem the first time I took the Pennsylvania bar exam, Judge Lee. Anyway, I maintain that I really studied hard, and my bartender and my girlfriends would have said the same thing too. But anyway, when I took it the second time, my dad was in the hospital in Detroit. Now, his sister, my Aunt Ida, was married to a doctor, Steve, who was a great guy. And he had my dad come out there to Harper Hospital, which was one of the best in the area, for a full physical exam. And so he's out there, and I was, you know, in Pittsburgh with the bar exam. Now, my brother had gone out to Detroit to drive Dad back to Johnstown. Why anybody would have my brother drive them anywhere for any reason is beyond me, but that's another story. In any event, Bob is at my Aunt Ida's in the morning, and he takes a call from the office. And he gets right to the hospital. And he walks into my dad's room, and he goes, "Dad, Andy passed the bar exam." And Dad went, "Thank God I'm in the hospital and lying down." I really feel that our combined families of the Gleasons and the Bardens, that we all feel that we had the best father and the best grandfather. Although on occasions he had a strange way of showing his love and devotion and caring, but it was, you know, all the better for us. Dad, it was a good ride, and happy birthday, and I love you.
Make an introduction here. My dear sister, sitting right there, Sister Ann. Put the hand up. Usually she has a lot to say, but she's going to leave it up to us. Is that okay? Okay. Now, we got the Barbin boys here. I don't know who's going to try to outdo who, but let's try to remember it's 5 minutes. All right? Let's start first with my dear partner, coming from the east, west, finally accomplishing an immediate entry and a fine record for us, and that's Brian Barbin. Brian. Okay, you're running this show now?
No, Brian said Bill was going.
Oh, Bill's going to handle it. Okay, Bill, you're the man. With further ado, the pride of our firm, William Barbin, Jr.
I know that Governor Scranton was one of the politicians in the state that my grandfather respected the most. I mean, he's related many stories to me over the year. I contacted him about coming today, and he couldn't come. He wrote the following letter, which I'd just like to read very briefly. Dear Bill, of course I'd like to be there for Andy's 100th birthday with bells and flags flying. He's a wonderful man, and I admire him immensely. Unfortunately, Mary's not well, and I have to stay with her as much as I possibly can, so I do not travel alone to events anymore. But you can be sure my heart and soul will be with Andy that day. Here's a suggestion for a written statement. If you think it can be improved, don't hesitate, and it can't be. Andy Gleason was one of the finest men I've ever known. Yes, he was deeply involved in politics for many, many years, but he was a politician for others and not for himself. In the 1960s, he was very helpful to me as governor, giving me wise advice and coming to Harrisburg frequently to help push our program through the legislature. He is primarily responsible for the legislation which placed 27,000 employees of PennDOT on civil service. He was thinking of all those employees and the opportunity to free them from the political spoil system. In short, this is a remarkable man of intelligence and wisdom who cares and works for his area, his state, and his country. Congratulations, Andy, on your 100th, and on all the other years before and after this one. You are a gem. With all my very best to you and all the others, most sincerely, William W. Scranton.
AJ naturally had a lot of great friends, and some of the ones that were important to him that were no longer with us, but who received and actually solicited many times his counsel and his help, and I'd just like to mention them. Even though they're in heaven, believe me, they're here with AJ and thought. And that's Senator Hugh Scott, Senator John Hines, and they were important friends, and they were personal friends who he thought a lot of. And I just want to pass that on because that's very important. He's known a lot of politicians over the years, but they've been very important to him. Even the ones that he knew on a state level, indeed a national level, like President Eisenhower, who he worked hard for. He also treasured, and I know he does, all the local candidates, whether they were Democrat or Republican. It didn't matter. If he thought you were a good man, he was for you. And he supported many from both sides, especially in the mayor elections, and I want to mention this, and Dawn Zuko could verify this, Ned Rose and Herb Fuel. Believe me, he had a lot to do with theirs. And also, and I want to mention this today, my dear cousin, who died 23 years ago, was with me 20 years. His son Pete is with us today, and that's Pat Gleason, who I think was the best state representative we ever had. With that, I'm bringing up here to the podium my partner and Brian Barber to give you a few words on the same.
Thank you. At this point, I want to try to, I'm going to try to be real short. I want to get one point across that I think you all know, but I want to make sure that I've said it at this important day for my grandfather. There's a reason why every single one of you is here today. And the reason is you were all important to my grandfather. Every single one of you has been touched in a way that I've been touched. He's touched everybody in unseen and seen ways. And all of our lives are better because of it. And because of that, I'm going to keep this real short. Because it's harder on him than it is on any of us. We could all talk for an hour each about the great things that, that we have in common with my grandfather, that he's affected our lives. But let me just make this point. There were giants in the world. Gifford Pinchot, he was the father of conservation in this country. Governor James Duff. Austin Meehan was the last Republican Party boss in the United States. Senator Hugh Scott, Governor Bill Scranton, those people were giants. In business, my grandfather was very close to Frank Pasquarella, to John Angus, to Red Lenz, to George Samias, and John Jeremino. In the legal field, my grandfather had the opportunity to be a lawyer in Charlie Najati's office. He came back to help his father with it, when he got sick. Charlie Najati at the time was the greatest trial lawyer in this country. He had an office in Pittsburgh. He was the Attorney General of this state. He chose to come to Johnstown. He was a close friend of Henry X. O'Brien, of Jerry Long, and of Maureen Lawley Green, who wasn't able to be here today. He was also friends of John Torquato, Governor Bob Casey, Jack Murtha, and Ed Wojnarowski. His community leaders that were close to him were Jim Solly, Don Zuko, Dr. Catter, Ed Cernick, and Howard Picking, among many others. His close friends that can be here with him today, his closest, were Ted Rubino, Jim Mackerlane's uncle, a great man, Johnny George, George and Ann Sapolich, Fran Sutton, Al and Eleanor Zuccolata, Rose Stake, Earl Hasselrig, and many others. His family that he touched were his father, Gus Gleason, his mother, Helen Gleason, my grandmother, Olga Gleason, his adopted son, Pat Gleason, his younger brother, Ted Gleason, his twin, Betty Gleason, his 3 children, his 9 grandchildren, his 12 great-grandchildren. All of those people were profoundly touched. When I thought about what it was that makes us all has something in common, it comes down to this. My grandfather is all personally known to all of you. He was Andy. You asked him for advice, and he gave you trusted, reliable advice. You knew when you told him something that he was going to look out for you, not for himself. He was able to transcend all of these areas because he believed in 4 things. The 4 things that mattered to him came from his father, his wife, and his mother. His father told him 2 things. He said, "You are as good as any man." He said, "That means you can talk to presidents." He knew Reagan personally, he knew Nixon personally, he knew Eisenhower personally. He said, "But every man is as good as you are." He could talk to everybody in this room just like he talked to President Nixon, to President Eisenhower, to President Reagan. His father also told him one other thing. He said, "Your word is your bond. You rise with your friends, you fall with your friends, you rise again with your friends." Those are the truest words that were ever said in any political group. If we had more of it today, we'd be a stronger party, we'd be a stronger country. His wife taught him, and everybody in my family knows this, she was a great lady. And she was a great lady because she said, all you have to do to know how to be a gentleman or a lady is you have to be kind. Whatever the situation is, if you do the kind thing, you have acted like a lady or a gentleman. She changed his life, and it affected all of us because he was kind to all of us. He was more of a gentleman because of her. And his mother had the greatest thing ever said to her when she died. Father Ward said to her, "Mrs. Gleason, I don't have to say anything more about Mrs. Gleason because she didn't have to ask respect. Everybody respected her because of her actions." And I think that's the greatest legacy that he's left for all of us. Thank you.
We knew eventually someone would get to Columbus and Harrisburg, so our next speaker is going to be the other twin, a very distinguished lawyer, served as Assistant United States Attorney, Assistant Attorney General of the state of Ohio, and is now back in Columbus, and that's my dear nephew, Brett.
Thank you, Bob. And thank you, Johnny George and his family. You did a great job today, and we can't really thank you for what you've done. I have the honor today of presenting a couple of things on behalf of my grandfather. The first grandfather is from Dom Seremble, and Monsignor Caputo, who, as many of you may know, is the chief legal counsel to the Vatican. But this is a papal blessing, and it reads, "His Holiness Pope Benedict XVI invokes joy and peace of our Lord Jesus Christ upon Mr. Andrew J. Gleason on the happy occasion of his 100th birthday, and cordially imparts his apostolic blessing from the Vatican this day, November 4th, 2005. The Holy Spirit." On my way in from Columbus, it was a little lighter moment. I had a chance to talk to the chancellor at St. Vincent College. Now, most of you know that many schools have claims on my grandfather, Pitt, Penn State, Purdue. He couldn't make up his mind to Duquesne for law school, but St. Vincent actually has the first, Chancellor, the Arch Abbot, Douglas, actually claims he has the best claim on it. He sent this message for him today on this occasion. St. Vincent College letterhead. It reads, "Dear Andy, as Coach Tukowski is in dire need of a point guard, and you are still 96 credits shy of graduation, I am pleased to extend a full scholarship to you and a Letterman jacket. Happy 100th, Arch Abbot Douglas, Chancellor, St. Vincent College." To put that in perspective very quickly, the reason why he was a St. Vincent alumni is because on the first day that he went to college with his father over the top of the hill before we had that wonderful road that leads over Ligonier Mountain, he took one look at the school before him, and he took a little look at the lunch that was being prepared, and he saw black bread. And he decided there was no way he was having black bread. So while his father was still talking to the Monsignor, he snuck out, got over to the Latrobe train station, got on the train, and got home before his dad. Imagine his dad's surprise when he goes to this, sit down, talk to his wife. Well, we got rid of one of them, because he, of course, was the first, and there he is, sitting in and said, "What's for dinner?" opening the white bread and moving right on. So, grandfather, thank you for letting me speak, and I appreciate everybody that's come, and I hope you all feel as good as we do.
Now we have to have a little poker tube here, and also some brains. I don't know what happened to Anne, but she made sure that all 5 children were lawyers. I think that's a strong attribute. So with no further ado, an equal of us all, probably better, Valerie. Valerie, you have the mic.
My mother wasn't able to get up today, so I just wanted to say something on behalf of both of us and of all of my family, which is how much we love my grandfather and respect him, and how important he is to every person here in so many ways. Not just, professionally, of course, he influenced us, and all 5 of us are attorneys, but in addition to that, he instilled in us some very strong values that will serve us well throughout our lives. One of the best things that my grandfather told me was something that the head of the Pennsylvania manufacturers had told him, which is, your son of a bitch isn't my son of a bitch. And it's very true that we all have enough enemies in this life, and that you don't need to take on anyone else's. And he conducted himself, and I thought, well, how do you do that? But he managed to do it, and I think for a large part I've managed to do it, and it's very true. And it serves me extremely well in life. The other thing is that my grandfather was inspiring because he got power not by seeking power, not by using his intelligence to oppress other people. He took his natural skills and never sought power and never sought really anything for himself. He's a very selfless man. And by that, he achieved power, a different kind of power than what some people would recognize, but a very important power. I sent away for his birthday to, on this day you were born in Ireland. And when it came back, it was very interesting because it told you different things. But the most interesting thing it said, and I think it's very true, is that my grandfather is intelligent, he's broad-minded, and he's generous. And those are probably his strongest characteristics. And I just wanted to say thank you, Grandfather.
Thank you, Valerie. And next, my wind-up man from Mechanicsburg, PA, our Dauphin County man, Attorney Andrew Barton. Andy.
You all know my grandfather, so I don't have to give a long-winded speech. I don't really have anything to add. Really. The people who know me will be shocked when I finish. I've got 3 things to say. The first thing is I took a lot of pictures today. And I took them because I knew that you would want to remember this moment like I did. And so if before you leave you can put your name and an email address, even if it's not your own email address, on that pad back there, I'll make sure you get pictures of yourself and this day. Second thing is you may have seen a video running on there. We not only did that video, but we did something that's way more important than me talking here. My daughters and I interviewed Grandfather over the past 5 years. We've taken several, all the great stories that I could stand here and tell you today, we took on videotape from his mouth. So those of you who want to hear those stories, and some of the stories of the family, like Burke's story about not liking anything about the Army, those stories from Grandfather's mouth have been recorded. If you want it, send me an email, I'll get it to you. The last thing I wanted to do was I wanted to give some credit to somebody who isn't here, who is part of the reason why Grandfather's here and why he has all these friends. When I was going through the family archives, I found a postcard. Robbie, kid, you may be interested in this. This is a Gus Gleason insurance postcard. And what it says is, I have 4 reasons for carrying insurance. The youngest is 2 and the oldest is 6. It's a picture of his kids. The one thing that I want to say as the youngest of the grandchildren is that this has been a great family to be a part of, because Andrew Gleason learned from Gus Gleason that the reasons for doing everything are family and community. And he did that, and I thank him for it. And as a thank you to him, I'm going to stop talking.
I'm closing this up in 2 minutes. That's a promise. And I want to pass something on Not only have I had the pleasure of practicing law with my dad for 45 years and never having really an argument with him, I also had the pleasure of working in the political pits with him. And he gave us a lot of direction. And what he did when he wanted everything to end, and that would be any speaker that spoke over 2 minutes, he would flash a famous signal. And I'm going to ask Brian there to turn him this way, because I'm going to give him his signal. Whenever you saw this, it was time to cut it. It was time to cut it. Whenever the arms went behind the neck, that was it. That was the time to cut the speech. So with no further ado, let me tell you that we appreciate heartfelt your presence today. It's a grand and glorious day, as the Irish said, and it's only the first day of the next month. God bless you all. Thank you.